From OmniAudio.Africa.
It should be RomneyAudio.Africa.
Romy Titus and Kevin McCullough. Not the sports news.
The boards have spoken.
Streaming data-free on the MTN network in South Africa. This is where Africa comes to play.
That is a masterclass.
On your phone, online, and on demand at OmniAudio.Africa.
It's mayhem.
Not the sports news.
Headset to work. A very good morning. It is another edition of Not the Sports News, and so much coming your way. It is an all sport Tuesday, so please don't forget. We are interactive. We are on Facebook. It is Omni Audio on Insta as well as TikTok. It's Omni Audio Africa as well as on YouTube. We're live, so taking any of your questions. If you want in on the conversations, please do, because we're talking cricket, we're talking F1, we're talking boxing with our contributors here on the show. And just to let you in on what our topics are today, I mean, you've got to talk about Virat Kohli. 614 runs in 14 matches, including 8 50s. Is he the one that's going to lead RCB to their first title? Prince Ndweni will be, actually Mpho Motluane, IPL cricket and URC rugby. That is his thing. So he chats to us on that. And then Oscar Piastri. I mean, if you think about Australia, F1, you think back to, I wasn't even born yet. 1980, and that is when Alan Jones did it. So will Oscar Piastri become the first champion since him to do the work and make the Aussies proud? That is where Prince Ndweni comes in to chat about F1 with us. And Pac-Man, he's making a return to the ring. Why? How? When? With who? Colin Nathan, our boxing expert right here at Omni Audio Africa, will give us the in on that one. But getting into other news stories as well. Yesterday, this one broke. Heinrich Klaasen, his immediate retirement from international cricket, and that ends a 7-year career with the Proteas. He's only 33 years old. And he retired from Red Ball cricket back in 2024, played 60 ODIs, 58 T20s, memorable performances, 174 against Australia back in 2023. And he expressed deep gratitude for this journey. We'll also ask Mpho a little more about this one. He called it a privilege also to represent his country. I think sportsmen really to don the badge of your country, to go and play for your country has got to be the highest honor. And, his impact in the game as well. But, I mean, at 33, I'm like, really? Is it time yet? But that is the announcement that broke yesterday from Heinrich Klaasen. Also, it is the end of the season. We've seen the Betway Prem champions crowned. We see them not quite get their second star. That was up against Pyramids. And now we see the wheeling and the dealing. What is happening with coaches? Yesterday, Tso actually threw a bit of a spanner in the works by saying, is it time for Cardoso to go based on the fact that the former coach was let go because he didn't win Champions League? And that was really what Sundowns were going for. So if it is the coaching merry-go-round, it should probably start round about now. So is Cardoso on it? Is Nabi on it? Who comes in for Riviero? A whole lot, I guess, happening behind the scenes, but then teams are also letting go of personnel. Miguel Tim, for example, is one of those. Njabulo Blom from Chiefs now returns to the USA, to St. Louis City. And Khadebe, who's also a product of the Chiefs Academy, he was also released. And so we're going to be seeing, I think, quite a few of this happening during the off-season. Out at Kruger United and Pretoria Callies in the Motsepe Foundation Championship, they facing severe delays in salary payments. And this always, for me, is really heartbreaking when you see just the little bit of the stipend that goes towards not your pro teams, your lower division teams. And apparently they've been unpaid for 3 months now. That is over at Callies. There is a player on loan from Cape Town City who went to Tuks, who's also since January not been paid his salary. And that is from Comitas and team. And that is just inside information that I have. And the question marks around that, whether a city is going to relegation or not, pay your players at the end of the day, if it is that you have a standing contract with that player, with a club. This really infuriates me. It's the Royal AM situation all over again, because at the end of the day, that salary goes towards looking after children. It's about the livelihood at the end of the day, so for 3 months to have financial instability, it's left many players obviously unable to meet those really basic needs. I think Mpho Motluane also hit the nail on the head one day saying, she plays for a national team, but the basics like toiletries, which is something she shares back home, and in a national team setup, you have to have your own. There's just no money to go around, So I think also salaries at the end of the day need to be paid. And in football, I'm not just saying it's the only sport, but in football, we're seeing so much of this happen. So the Football Players Union has stepped in. They've condemned the situation and have called for immediate action to protect and defend the players' rights. So we'll definitely follow up on that story and see how it goes here. And then another story, Olympic gold medalist. This is Gabby Thomas. And this, when we used to do Mampara of the Week, these stories I always used to pop up, the verbal abuse, the abuse on social media, for example, that anybody just has an in because they can. But there's got to be a line, and I really wonder if regulation when it comes to sort of online reporting podcasts is something that will happen, because here's poor Gabby Thomas, verbally abused by a man at the Grand Slam track meet in Philadelphia, where he followed and shouted insults, and it was linked to sports betting at the end of the day. So the harassment, it was caught on video, and the gambler claiming his heckling helped win a bet. I'm not so sure of that. I don't know if you are, but heckling helped win a bet. So they're investigating this incident. They're condemning the behavior and promising stronger safeguards, while Thomas and others have highlighted the urgent need to address abuse that is linked to gambling and female athlete visibility. Whether gambling, whether you're doing it because you do not like the athlete, or whether you're just doing it for likes, clicks, follows, because it's going to now propel you to fame, I just find it very much in poor taste. So some of the stories that we are tracking, but I did say that we are following cricket today, F1, as well as boxing with Colin Nathan. So in a short while, we will get Mpho Motluane on the line. We're chatting Virat Kohli, stellar lead from RCB, and will his contribution lead them to their first title? Mpho, you there? Welcome to the show. We're just talking, obviously, going through Virat Kohli's stellar lead, RCB, to their first title. That is the question we're asking. But if you take a look at the SA players who stood out for you in the IPL season, who would it be?
Hi, Rumi. How are you doing?
Always good.
The standout SA players this time have been the batters. Unfortunately, our bowlers didn't get a lot of time, and obviously Kagiso's ban also kind of stopped what seemed like a very good start. But Joe Coetzee put his hand up and reminded us how good he was. From a batting perspective, it's the story of the man who retired yesterday, Heinrich Klaasen. Proving to everyone that he still has it, right? He scored 487 runs at an average of 44 at a strike rate of 172. And then you ask yourself why he's retiring. And so from international cricket. But look, I think Heinrich Klaasen is a show. No game is decided until he is out. And I said this on my podcast yesterday, and I'll say it again. He gives you that opportunity to turn losses into wins, and also to blow teams away. And he scored 100 in this IPL for Sunrisers, which was so beautiful. 105 not out, coming in so late. And I think he scored it off of like 40 something balls. And he's just a show. But that's Heinrich, and that's what we expect, because he's got that gold dust. A player who we hoped of gold dust, but hasn't come to fruition in the T20 game. But now he's coming into his own. Hopefully, is Aiden. Aiden scored 448 runs this season, probably his best ever. The top of the order, giving Shukri some food for thought in the T20 realm as to whether Aiden might be the future opener for this team. I think it would suit him well. For the what was it? The Super Giants, the Lucknow Super Giants, he did really well, an average of 34, scored a couple of half centuries there. And then obviously Ryan Rickleton, he is the man we hope has the stardust going forward, starting his career in a similar vein to Heinrich Klaasen from an international perspective, also quite late into the piece, in his late 20s. Ryan Rickleton came into this IPL on the back of an incredible SA20, and he just continued with that form, really doing really, really well. They also scored 388 runs at an average of 40 for the daily, for Mumbai Indians. And so, yeah, look, there were some really good performances, and there was others like Tristan Stubbs, who came in and out of that Delhi Capital side this season, but also did quite well with the bat there. So, yeah, look, it looks good for South Africa going forward, but the man who was the best is no longer playing for the Proteas.
Yeah, I'm a little confused by that. I mean, immediate retirement. This breaks yesterday, like you said, at the age of 33. So much still to give. So why the goodbye?
So he did this last time in the Test arena, largely because I think Coach Shukri told him that he was no longer going to be part of the plans of the Test side, even though he really still wanted to play Test cricket. I think that time he was 31 at the time. I think possibly with this immediate retirement, it wasn't the allure of money, but just the idea that he may not be playing. Shukri in his press conference as a limited overs coach mentioned that everyone needs to be available for all Proteas games. He doesn't care about your international. You can't pick and choose, right? But look, there's three. In the way I look at this Proteas limited over setup, there were three players that were the holy trinity. That were I don't like using that term, but guys who you know what they're going to bring. You don't need to see them. That's Virat Kohli, David Miller, and Kagiso Rabada. You can literally put them in cotton wool for 4 years and unleash them at tournament.
I like that.
Of what they do. And so I do think it may have been a discussion with the management of the team and the director of cricket in terms of where the future is going. And the management felt that there were enough youngsters coming through the system to replace a Heino Klaasen, and so it was easy for them to let him go because he didn't have a contract. A Proteas contract for the next year, which was kind of interesting, but we thought it was one of those situations like in rugby where if a Sam Cane after the World Cup, you let him go and see the world and go experience new things and try new dishes, and then you'll bring them back a year later. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. I do think it's something with the direction where the team is going, and in my head, him retiring has taken the Proteas from being a contender at the next World Cups to being a dark horse, because now we'll be looking to youngsters who have promise but have never delivered. Whereas this man in a World Cup final brought us to the point where we needed to run a ball against India in the T20 World Cup.
I like what you say there, because I look at all sport and I really think it is the rise of the next generation, right? Where at the age of 33, perhaps, you're a little bit on the other side. Do you think that is the same in cricket, where you are seeing the rise of the next generation come up and take their place?
So I don't think so. I think cricket lovers and cricket fans always just want to see who the next best thing is, right? But it's not. But you don't forget about what you have now. And my thing was, the next generation are great to have them there, but they must knock the door down. What happened to the days where you would come into a Protea side with 10,000 test runs? You played domestic cricket for 10 years. And at 27, they give you the keys to the kingdom, and you come in a fully fledged player. If you look at how Travis Head, who's going to play against the Proteas next week, came into the Australian team, it took years for him to come in. Travis Head was playing Big Bash, played I think every single season of Big Bash bar the last 5. And that was because now he's a fully fledged Australian cricketer. This thing of wanting to push youngsters in should be looked at very carefully, because now you're asking a youngster to carry you, and you're letting go of someone who's done it before, who's been there, who is effectively one of the scariest men in cricket to walk away, because you want some 21-year-old kid or an 18, 19-year-old child who's just recently learned how to drink or drive to come in and that too, to come into your team. I'm not a fan of that. 33 is still very young. Look at Faf du Plessis at 40. Look at Virat Kohli at 38. Look at Rohit Sharma. India are still taking Rohit Sharma to the World Cup next year. And Virat Kohli. They've got many youngsters. In this IPL, you've seen many youngsters looking for an opportunity to make it to the Indian team. The youngsters can knock. We'll only let them in when we need to let them in. If not, they must break the door down. And no one in South Africa had broken the door down. You can speak of Devil Brevis. He's had a great time in the SA20. He's had a great time in the IPL coming in the back end. But I'm still not sure that when it matters, he's going to come through. Whereas with Heino Klaasen and possibly David Miller, we had an axis at 5 and 6 that no matter what happens with the top order, You knew that these guys would try to give us something.
I
And
guess a
I think we
delicate
lost
balance,
that.
right? That you need to strike between, I guess, the youth and the experience.
Yeah, so if you look at like an AB de Villiers, right? AB came into the side as a wicketkeeper, and they didn't expect much from him in his early years up until he turned 27, 28 when he popped. And then we all realized, oh man, he's the greatest. He's one of the greatest in the world, right? If that's what we're trying to do now, that's okay. But then we lose the opportunity to contend at World Cups because you now pushed yourself into a rebuilding phase. What CSA tacitly told us is that 2027, we're not going to be contending. Because we're letting go of one of the best players in the world, one of the best batsmen in the world, top 5, top 10. We can argue until the cows come home. But what Heino Klaasen and David Miller gave us in that little access at 5 and 6 was tantamount to probably having the best two batters in tough situations in world cricket. India knows this, Australia knows this, England knows this, and now they're looking at us going, oh, they're going to put a youngster in there. We're not scared.
Good points made there. I mean, if we move on, obviously, to RCB and the Punjab Kings, 18-year drought. If it is that you have a crystal ball, who's going to break this 18-year drought? I mean, RCB have made it to the final thrice, 2009, 2011, 2016, and suffered defeats in all matches.
Look, one thing I'll give the IPL is the competitive nature of it. The fact that India's greatest son outside of Sachin Tendulkar has not won an IPL is unbelievable. In the world where everyone talks about sport being rigged. But finally, hopefully now, it can go into his favor. But look, I think RCB have always had an issue, right? Over the years, RCB have either been batting heavy or bowling heavy and batting light. And they have struggled to find the balance. They've always gone for names rather than players with who are statistically strong. This season, they've struck a balance. And then they've also found Virat Kohli at his best. Because always in the IPL, Virat Kohli is always like here or there, right? He's played 18 times. Only 8 times has he crossed 500 runs. This is that season where he's done it. So when he does that, they play well. And you hope that because he's won World Cups, because when you look at that Punjab side, it's it's more of a sum of the parts type of team. And they're hoping on Yuzvendra Chahal to come through and Arshdeep Singh to remind us who he is. It's possible that RCB finally get this one. Number 18 for number 18.
Is that where your money's
try
on?
for number 18.
RCB?
So the way I look at it, has been there before. And so I look at Punjab and both teams have never won the IPL. So then I look at what's the next best thing? World Cup finals. RCB have guys who've been in World Cup finals and won it. Hazelwood, Kohli, and Tim David if he ever comes on. Liam Livingstone's made it to a World Cup and won it with England in 2019. So guys who've been in the big spots and have done it, right? When you look at Punjab, Shreyas Iyer has won it as captain, so that helps. Chahal's also a World Cup winner, and Arshdeep Singh as well is a World Cup winner. So, but then I look at it and I'm like, the experience is one I go for in a final. Which is why the Champions League final was such an anomaly, because the team that has been there multiple times decided they didn't want to play soccer. This time, I think RCB will do it, unless they too don't want to play cricket. And I wouldn't be surprised if RCB did it, because if there ever was an upset, it would be an RCB with Virat Kohli not doing anything in the final. But this time, I think he will.
Okay. You sure? You still have time to change that.
No, that's fine. I'm a Punjab fan. I've always loved Punjab, but I think RCB is going to take it. I think Josh Hazelwood has done really well. He's surprised me because I don't see him as a T20 bowler, but this season somehow he's managed to do it, and I think he's going to lead them up front. And then that batting lineup, Patidar has been a great captain for RCB. Tim David, if he plays, is a phenomenal talent. And Virat Kohli also in the final, I can't bet against him.
Okay, let's change gears. We talk a little bit of rugby now, seeing that you've set the mood already for today and what is going to happen in that final. But Bulls versus Sharks, that's a set for epic URC semi-final.
Yes, we've had to pull out Google and Wikipedia to figure out what we were going to do at extra time when it was tied, and we figured out it was a penalty shootout, and that was very interesting. We hadn't seen it in years. And the Sharks got through. And I think last week I said that the Sharks were the best placed team in South Africa in the URC because when they win as the third seed, they still get a semi-final in South Africa against a team they can beat. Obviously, historically, the Bulls always have always just go over the Sharks and find a way to beat the Sharks in the most embarrassing fashion. But I think this time, I think they'll have an opportunity. The thing with the Sharks, and that should terrify the Bulls, is that all those Springboks that are laden in that side need to remind themselves why they're the best in the world. And if they can play to that level, which they didn't play against Munster, they will get there. The Sharks' attack looks a little disjointed in the back line, but it can be. It's not something that can't be fixed within a week. And so it's going to be an interesting one because if I'm the Sharks, I'm throwing everything at them. And if I'm Irvin and if I'm Sia and if I'm in that front row, that scrum is going to be so important. And I think the Sharks might win that battle, which will set the Bulls on the back foot. But the Bulls always find a way to come back. They have that never say die spirit. So it's a massive game, Rumi. And yeah, if you're going to ask me to pick somebody, I don't know.
No, look, don't pick yet. Don't pick yet. But at the end, as we wrap it up, I guess you have to pick. I almost want to ask you the importance of URC and especially how well, or not well, if you would, do South African teams fare? Like, I almost want to say, is it of value? You know, not to for a lack of a better word, but just in your opinion, you know, URC. And its value, and why is it valuable, especially if you see how SA teams fare?
Look, I think it's valuable, largely because we're playing in the same time zone most of the times, right? And so the travel is the one thing that's always been the problem with the Super Rugby. The strength of the teams in Super Rugby was stronger. And I think that's something that maybe the South Africans might miss. But the fact that we're playing in a longer league format, they're getting more games, they're playing in the, and also ability in the final 8 we've got 3 teams out of the 4 in the quarterfinals, and the Lions could have made it in had they won their last 2 games with the Stormers. So it would have been 4 South African teams in the URC playoffs in the top 8, right? So I think it's put South African rugby in a very interesting place. It's also allowed the Springboks to change their training methods a little bit, right? Allow players to rest in different parts of the year that they never thought they could, and it's reaping dividends, right? End of year tours means that it's the start of the season, so that players are still a little bit fresh and have got game time, and they're resting from the rugby championship to the start of the URC. So I think it's reap benefits for South Africa because now I think we're seeing a lot fresher Springbok team, and I think there's a lot more competition, and I think it's great for people to watch their teams in a time zone where you don't have to wake up at like 5 a.m. and players, when they travel, they don't have to like spend half the day in the darkness just so that they can acclimatize to being in Australia and New Zealand. And yeah, look, there was an issue earlier on about them traveling economy class to go overseas. I hope that's been sorted out. But even then, it's an overnight flight to wherever you need to get to in Europe, which is much better than a 18, 20-hour flight across the Indian Ocean. I still miss the strength, the relative strength of the New Zealand and Australian sides, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and they're showing that by being, by South Africa being the number 1 nation in the playoffs with the most teams in the playoffs. I think Wales had 1, Scotland had 2, Ireland had 2, and then the 3 were South African teams. It makes sense. And yeah, look, the Stormers did well in Edinburgh last week, but that's neither here or there because I think the South African teams are doing quite well.
Yeah, I mean, let's just zoom in. I mean, can the Sharks maintain their composure, especially in these high pressure situations?
Look, they can. Look, they remember you're talking about a team that's filled with World Cup finalists and world champions, right? And I always back the guys with more of the experience, right? Because regardless of where you are, and rugby's such a game where you can't come half done. And the Sharks, I think, thought they could come a little bit like at 80%. they know that against the Bulls they have to come 100%. They know that they are the underdog in this game, but they are the team laden with Springboks, laden with guys who've been in a position like this and won by 1.3 times in a row. If they can get there, they'll be fine. They'll probably end up winning at Loftus, and hopefully you could get a URC final at Kings Park if things fall your way, right? But my thing is with the Bulls are a team that are tactically dominant. You've got a coaching mismatch there between Jake White and Plumtree. Definitely. Jake White's a better coach. But from a player mismatch, the Sharks have that. What I don't understand is how the Sharks are not taking advantage of that mismatch throughout the entire of the rugby season. And it also speaks to how they've rested players and they've tried to rest more senior players and give other guys a chance. Just play your best team. If they play their best team and everyone comes as advertised as what they were hoping to, they could end up with another trophy in Durban. But again, it depends on how this team arrives at these games. They let Munster run around them with a Munster team that just they hobbled their way through the rugby championship. And so like against the Bulls are buttoned up. They are ready. They are presenting you with the next Springboks.
Okay.
Whereas you're playing with the current Springboks and you're sitting there going, the Bulls are going to be very much waiting and very much excited to prove to the world that they deserve to be considered in that conversation. Like Keegan Johannes is a really good flower, you know, and it's just small things like that like, and Jake White is such a mastermind in getting his team ready for these challenges.
Yeah. The winking situation, I want to ask you about that. I mean, I even played it down to like maybe he had an eye twitch, you know.
Rugby is the one game where you can end up punching a man, but people will fight over you because somebody winked and try to do some gamesmanship when people are kicking. It speaks to the type of men that play rugby. Really, like,
so it comes with a bit
ethical.
of acting. You take acting classes as well.
Oh, they always joke that that's for the soccer players, right? But,
yes, but it's for the rugby players too.
but look, in those situations, you need a bit of gamesmanship. You need to give yourself some time. You need to find a way. It's the same thing with Rafa Nadal, right? Rafa in that tunnel at Roland Garros will be jumping up and down, running, doing hill sprints, and you're arriving there as the challenger going, okay, should I be doing this? Should I not? What's this man doing? He's the best in the world. I should be doing more than this. Do you get him? That's gamesmanship, right? Novak Djokovic, if he loses the first set, Novak will go to the bathroom for 15 minutes.
But hold on, though. Everybody is also using that hashtag disgraceful. So through your eyes, right, as you witnessed this, I'm sure everybody laughed, but at the end of the day, they're just saying this is not sportsmanship. This is disgraceful.
No, man, it's gamesmanship. Like I don't think it's disgraceful. I think, look, let's get off our horses and calm down. It is a game of rugby, and people are trying to win. And at that point in time, it's very emotional because people it's a tie, right?
Yeah,
and you're trying to get through this, right? So look, if you need to do what you need to do to get out, do it. Within the laws. There's no law against it. Yes, it looks bad on Jaden Hendrickson, but quite frankly, his team's in the URC semi-final in Munster and Ireland complaining.
And no one is saying anything is disgraceful. I want to hear from the Sharks before you've mentioned a little bit about the Bulls, but in terms of altitude, do you think that will play a part at all?
Look, it does. It matters. They always say it matters, and I think it does. But look, I think the Sharks have played at Loftus. They know you should be able to prepare well, which is the reason why I was saying it's better for them to play in South Africa, even if it's at Loftus, than for them to get on a plane and go to Ireland or Scotland to go play this semi-final, because that adds a lot more difficulties. You should be able to plan against it. These teams have been playing each other for the last 100 years. The Sharks should know how to prepare to play at Loftus and kill the altitude, right? And they're laden with a whole lot of Springboks. Like, I'm not going to blame the altitude when you have a team, probably the best assembled team on paper in the URC. You should be winning games like this. There's no reason why you can't.
You mentioned the Bulls. I'm just thinking, I mean, their game plan, what does it have to be for them to start strong to avoid early deficits?
Look, that was a really very lucrative bet for me. I think that the Bulls would be behind at halftime. Look, it's also about being focused, right? You gotta be switched on. You gotta know that it's an 80-minute game and it's not a 60-minute game with the first 20 minutes as an ease-in period. You can't afford to ease in the later you go into the tournament because it might be those first 20 minutes that cost you the game. Playing catch-up rugby is nice, but you may run out of time. And that's the nature of sport, right? There's a time component to it. So, it's just about focus, right? Sometimes, and it's also about preparation on the day. Like if your warm-ups are strong, you'll come out strong. If your warm-ups are 50-50 and your coach has to call you and shout at you to let you know that you're not going to start off well.
Yeah.
And so that's obviously comes with maturity. The Bulls are slightly younger side than the Sharks. And we saw that against Edinburgh last week when Edinburgh started strong. But they and you also have to be able to take the first punch. And I think in this game, the Sharks, if they do punch, the question is, can the Bulls come back? And that's going to be quite important for us to see. What's sitting underneath this Bulls side, right? We can see their physicality. We can see the ability to move the ball. They're actually quite a very good backline team, attacking team. But then the question is, when you are hit in the face, what can you do? They did it well against Edinburgh, but now you have an even different challenge in a derby that's going to be very tetchy and very physical. So it's going to be quite interesting to see how the Bulls come up against that.
Yeah, 42-33 there up against Edinburgh. Also, the other semi, Leinster and Glasgow Warriors. What's your take on that, and who's your money on?
Look, my money's on the defending champs, the Glasgow Warriors there. I think Leinster have done well. They were the best team in the URC this year, and they've built a really good side. There, I think Leinster play some exciting rugby, and look, I think they've got Geordie Barrett in there, and he's always has the ability to break a game away. But I do think I think Glasgow have it in them. They proved that they can win away from home when they beat the Bulls here at Loftus, and I think I'd go with the defending champs over Leinster. It's up to Leinster to make the game. Yeah, I think Glasgow can, with their forward pack, can take on anybody, and if they lean on that forward pack, they can come out really well.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much. Hoping for that epic final out at Loftus. Fingers crossed. Mpho, good chatting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Remy. Have a nice day.
You too. There, just unpacking cricket for you, rugby as well. They're just saying Sharks, Bulls, their strengths, their weaknesses, what needs to be done, and why it is that URC is important to rugby in South Africa and just the level and elevation that it does bring. We're talking F1 after this with Prince Motluane. Don't forget, we're also interactive. So go ahead, follow us, ask questions, throw in a question. More than happy to ask that on your behalf right here.
This is Omnisport Africa. We are putting African sport first, live and on demand, on your phone, data free on the MTN network in South Africa. T's and C's apply, and online at omniaudio.africa. Because reading about it tomorrow won't help you today.